Good morning, everyone. I'd like to dedicate today's learning in memory of my mother, Mrs. Shalamis Rabinowitz, Shalamis Bas Yaakov Eliezer, whose Shloshim is today. And this week's learning is being sponsored by Richard Goldstein in memory of his father, Joseph Goldstein, Zalman Yosef, in commemoration of his yahrzeit. Okay, we're in Mishna Meiser Sheni, Parakeh, chapter 5, Mishna Yidal, Mishna 14. So we have been going through the psukim, the verses that a person recites when saying the vidui, that's done following beer. And the last part of the previous Mishnah mentioned the words where we say, Urei chasamcha Yisrael, bless your nation Yisrael, and the land that you have given us. So based on those words, where the person says, on the land that you have given us, Bikan Amru, it's from here that the sages said, Yisrael umamzerim misvadim, a Yisrael, a regular Jewish person, or a mamzer is someone that was born out of a marriage that carries with it, in the very least, a punishment of kares, of premature death, plus the fact that there is no kiddushin, there is no really possibility of marriage in that union, and a child is born from that union, that child's a mamzer. So Yisrael and mamzerim misvadim, they say the Vida confession. They say the Vida Maisris, the Maisris confession. But not converts nor freed slaves. In terms of the concept of a non-Jewish slave that actually goes through bris milah and tefillah and is put into the mikveh when they become a slave, because as a slave they become obligated in certain mitzvahs. When they're freed, they go to the mikveh again and become just like a convert. So both the converts and the freed slaves do not say the vidui maisris, the confession of maisris. Why? They have no portion of the land. When the land was divided up, when it was conquered, when the land of Israel was conquered, it was not divided up. Converts or freed slaves did not have a portion. And therefore, they cannot say the words, the land that you have given us. Now, although people are saying that generations later, but land given to us means to our ancestors. Or it means if we would have been there at that time, we would have gotten a portion of land. So if we would have been there, we got a portion of land. Our ancestors, meaning our direct ancestors, got a portion of land. And that is why we live on the land. Or as I said before, if we would have been there, we would have gotten a portion of land. When you're dealing with a convert or with a freed slave, that doesn't apply. And therefore, the Mishnah says, or the first opinion of the Mishnah is, that they would not do this recital. Now, the first part of the Mishnah that says Yisrael and Mamzerim, there's really no novel idea that the Mamzer would be able to say it. A Mamzer is a child of the father, and he's entitled to a piece of land. There was no such idea that a Mamzer did not get a portion of land, would not have gotten a portion of land. It's just trying to say that, a Mamzer who is, again, disqualified from marrying a Jewish woman has no connection, though, to the fact to the ability to say the Vida Maisris, because the land, he would have had a portion of the land like anybody else. But the Ger and the Eved do not. Now, Rabbi Meir says, if you're telling me that you can't say those words for the land you'll be giving us unless you could be able to have received a piece of land, then Kohanim and Leviim also should not be saying this recital. Because they didn't take a portion of the land. Kohanim, Leviim weren't given a portion of the land. And therefore, they have cities that they live dispersed in the land, right? There were 48 cities set aside for the Leviim to live in, but they didn't receive a portion of land. So if they didn't receive a portion of land, there's no different than the convert. So they also shouldn't be able to say it. That's what Meir says. Meir will be of the opinion that a Kohen or a Levi wouldn't say it. But Rabbi Yossi argued and said, but the Kohanim and the Leviim have the Arei Migrash. They have the open cities. What that means is the Torah says that that every tribe has to have cities for Leviim to live in their portion of the land. And actually the Torah says, and around their land, they have to have open space for planting and for their animals. And that's why they're called Arei Migrash, the open areas, because the Torah makes cities. But Rabbi Yossi's point is that they have these cities that they live in, and they plant there, and they grow things there, and therefore they are able to say the land that you have given us, because they did receive a portion of land. They received those cities. They were given a right to. They didn't. The same way everybody else's portions were designated, their cities were designated, and they're always meant to get those cities. So they have the right to say the land you have given us, because they were given the cities. So what does the Tanakama hold? What did Rameir hold? So it's very interesting. We read here from what they have here in the notes. Rabbi Yossi holds that the Kohanim and Leviim enjoyed full rights of ownership to these cities. He therefore rules that they can recite Vidui Meiser because they can honestly say the land that you have given us. According to Rameir, though, the Kohanim and Leviim may not say the Vidui Meiser on account of these cities because they did not actually own them. They were merely granted the right to live there. According to Rameir, it's not their cities. If they had a city in the tribe of Yehuda, it was Yehuda city. Just that, Yehuda had to give them a place where to live. And there were laws given about those cities. They had to have open area. But it's not that it's their cities. It's just that they have the right to live there. And you have to give them it. And you have to give them the ability to live there. But it wasn't their cities. So according to Rabbi Yossi, it was their cities. And therefore he says that they would say the vidui. And that is the halacha. The halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, that the Kohanim and the Leviim would be saying the vidui meisers. Okay, tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem, is the final Mishna of Maseches Meiser Sheni. So that's tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll be finishing this Masechta and going on to the next one, which is the Masechta, the tractate of Chala. Okay. Now, the discussion until now, we're continuing with the laws of Lashon Harah, Klal Zayin, chapter 7, Sif Yud Gimel, paragraph 13. Previous paragraph discussed the law, what happens when there are Devarim Hanikarim. Somebody tells you something that somebody did something wrong, and there's evidence. That was the discussion. And the point was that, again, if the evidence is something that the evidence is directly related to the incident, and you yourself see this evidence, then you can believe what he said for the purposes of not associating with him, disliking him. But again, we said it's not enough basis to tell others about it or to cause them any kind of loss. So now the Chavetz Chaim says, there are times when a rabbinical court would have the power for a temporary purpose, for a tzarech shah, means that there is a need for the time. Somebody comes to the basin to complain that he was robbed or he was cheated. And he's able to lay out in front of the Beis Din evidence that so-and-so stole this object from him. The rabbinical court itself sees the evidence, not just saying, I have evidence. They see the evidence. Are there witnesses about the evidence? Not witnesses to the theft, but witnesses to the evidence that's being brought forth. So that means they're working based on evidence. The rabbinical court would have the power to actually hit him, beat him, so that he would admit. Again, tzarech shah, they have to basically, the Beis Din has to evaluate the situation, and it could be if the situation calls for it, they would have the right based on evidence to force it to try to get him to admit to what he did wrong. Now, this is not something that nowadays, present day, but they did in present day rabbinical courts practice. But essentially, halachically, a rabbinical court could have the power to do that. And the point of the Chavetz Chaim is to say that you see that there are times that we're actually going to do something to this person, very serious based on the evidence. But again, that's only in a basin. That's only for a rabbinical court. But for an individual, or for the bezdin to do this just based on the claims of the person making this claim, but they don't see the evidence, this license would not be allowed. So now in paragraph Yudalad, paragraph 14, many people are mistaken regarding this. Let's say something was stolen from them, and they suspect a certain person of doing so. They say to the Tuvei Ha'ir, that means they say to the seated leadership. There was years ago a city council, a Jewish city council. There were cities that were, primarily occupied by Jews, and they had a Jewish city council that had powers of governing. So what do they do? What does this person do? They went to the city council. They tell the city council, we have proof. I have proof that this guy stole this from me. And they would go ahead and they would, just based on the person's claim, actually, beat the person in order to get him to admit. The emes hu shaloi kedin. This is wrong. Even if you could say that the evidence is like seeing what happened. And to say that the city council has the status like a rabbinical court. They have to at least know that the person actually stole. Or they have to have witnesses to the Devarim Nikarim. Or they themselves see it. Meaning, even if you'll say that this is like a bezdin, and you'll say that Devarim Nikarim is strong. However, at the end of the day, where are the Devarim Nikarim in this case? The evidence has been presented. The bezdin never saw it. The Eidim are never there. You don't even have the Devarim Nikarim. You even have the evidence. And they went ahead and they still acted upon that. And therefore, there's no right to rely just on the person making the claim to now beat this Jew for no reason. Even to believe the person making the claim that this person stole, you'd be forbidden to do so, to believe it, because it's accepting Lashon Harah. Because again, no evidence, no basis, just a claim. And then they go actually beat a person, which actually is a prohibition. Not allowed to strike a person. The Torah prohibits a person who has the bezdin. His job is, there was a time where certain rabbinical courts had the power to administer lashes for a punishment. Somebody had to have that job to do it. And the Torah says that if you're supposed to give him X amount of lashes and you give him one more, you can't say, well, it was just one more. No, that's a prohibition. It says lo yasir, not allowed to add beatings. It's a prohibition. So to go beat a fellow Jew for no reason, when there's no right to do it, when there's no permission to do so, is a Torah prohibition. So here you have these people that are doing so without basis. And therefore the Chavetz Chaim said, this is something that apparently in his time was an issue, where you had people just based on a claim beating the person who's suspected, which of course is not going to be permissible, because the Chavetz Chaim says, even if you'll say that the city council has the power of a bezdin, which doesn't necessarily sound like that's so simple, but if you'll say they do, they have to have the evidence. And in this case, they don't have it, and therefore there's no right to do it. Have a wonderful day.